Ronald Reagan, the president of the United States back in the 1980s, he said these words. He said, you can't defeat your enemies unless you understand them. If you don't understand your enemies, you cannot defeat them. And he said you can't even begin to understand them if you are too cowardly to even name them. My enemy, what I faced in growing up. The enemy of alcoholism, the enemy of low self-esteem, the enemy of emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, of all of those things which this body experienced. All of those things, if I was unwilling to name them at that particular point, I could never defeat. You cannot defeat what you're unwilling to name. That's why the Bible tells us in 1 John chapter 1, verse number 9, he said this. He said, but if we confess our sins, if we name them, he is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us. So you're defeating them in that way. So here are 5 enemies that you need to know that you have. 5 enemies. Number 1 is the path of least resistance. That people want it to be easy. Because remember this, every great success requires some type of struggle. Every great success does. See, good things come to those who work hard and pursue those good things. Good things will come. Pursue them. When you pursue them, you're not taking the path of least resistance. I know people and deal with people every day that every day, all day, what they do is just, if it's easy, they'll get it done. But if it's not easy, they won't get it done. Solomon said in Proverbs chapter 6, he said, take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. He said, learn from their ways and be wise. He said, though that they have no prince, overseer, governor, who will make them work, he said, they still labor hard all summer. That's what they do. They gather food for the winter. See, they don't have anybody telling them what to do, but what they're doing is that they're preparing for more difficult times, and they're preparing to be successful. He said, but you lazy bones, how long are you going to sleep? How long are you just going to take off? You're just wasting your life. And you understand about wasting your life is not necessarily somebody speaking down at you. But when someone says you're wasting your life, you only have a certain amount of years to be able to invest in what we're discussing. And the more that you take your time to get started means the less time you have to accomplish the goals that God's put in your life. He said, but you lazy bones, he said, how long will you sleep? He said, how long are you going to sleep? When are you going to wake up? He said, I want you to learn this lesson. This is Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, said these words. He said, now learn this lesson. A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, and a little folding of your hands to rest. He said, so poverty will come upon you like a bandit, and your want will come on you like an armed man. He'll take everything you've got. He said that what will happen is that bandit will steal from you everything if you sit around and you're lazy. So number 1 is it is an enemy to have, is the path of least resistance. If you know that it's least resistant, you're not going to hear from the devil at all, but you're also not going to hear from God. So don't take the path of least resistance ever. Take the path of the greater resistance. Because even if you get into the greater resistance and you don't get everything that you want out of the greater resistance, there will be so much more than you would have ever gotten by taking the path of least resistance. Number 2. This is an enemy you need to know you have. You need to move on. Don't just hold on. You need to move on. I asked a friend of mine, I said, what was your biggest mistake in life? What was your biggest mistake? He goes, oh, Rob, he said, I've made a million mistakes. I said, no. One that you just remember. That you remember it. You know, what one thing? He said, well, there is one. And I said, well, what was that? He said, there were times when I just stayed too long. I held on too long. And when you hold on too long, what ends up happening in your life is that you end up becoming tremendously disappointed. The people that you're with are disappointed. They do not understand, nor do you really kind of figure why it doesn't seem like it's working out. But it's because you held on too long.